I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
It's funny, just to bring our off-mic conversation to the show, like literally right before we hit record, we're trying to figure out, okay, we're definitely going to talk about the Lynx. That was just an epic, like classic Minnesota sports moment that they don't usually deliver to us. We'll get to that random wolf of the week. And I said, hey, I got some Julius Randle thoughts. He played in that preseason game last night. And Kyle says, are you ready to trade him already? I am not at all ready to trade Julius Randle. I mean, first of all, like they're all trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. They're all playing together for the first time. You've got like different agendas. You got Julius Randle trying to just play basketball for the first time in months. But then you got DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards trying to hit the new apparent Timberwolves 3-point attempt quota they've set. Right? I don't know if it's like official, but they launched 29 combined threes. And then you got guys trying to like make the roster. Josh Minott, get playing time. So should we start with some Julius Randle stuff? Are you ready to trade him? Are you out after one game?
I have a stat related to 3-point shooting, but I think we should talk about Julius Randle first. And we do need to talk about the Lynx. Again, behind the scenes, my parents are in town all week, so we're doing a bunch of stuff. Next week, better office studio. So I'm teasing it for the YouTube audience.
Pictures on the wall, or
we got a big bookcase coming in, and I got my signed Kobe Bryant ball. I have a signed Karl-Anthony Towns ball, but I got a bunch of stuff. So this will look less like a prison cell a week from now. But let's go back to Julius Randle because yes, that he made his Timberwolves debut last night. Right away, -1 for him because he was wearing a shirt under his jersey. Really against that.
I couldn't tell. Was it like a shoulder? It looked like a shoulder wrap, or was it just like a?
I might be an a-hole for calling that out. I just don't like when people wear shirts under jerseys. Nas has done it. I've told that to Nas. But if it's
was it
medical,
a T-shirt or was it like?
No, it's like
the Under Armour.
Yeah. But if it's for his shoulder, I take it back. Cancel me. But what did you think? What did you think of his first 30 or so, 24 minutes in a Timberwolves uniform?
I reserve the right to change my opinion on this in like 5 games or the first game. I kind of like watching him play. He's got a totally different style than Karl-Anthony Towns, and he can definitely be sticky with the basketball where it's like, all right, it's Julius Randle time here. And I was even going through just some of his career trends and stats. I will say this. Cat is no doubt. Cat, who, by the way, was at a concert last night in New York.
Billie Eilish.
And Jordan Woods took a video of Cat. Cat had like his Knicks hat on, and he's like up there in some suite. And Jordan Woods, his girlfriend, takes a video of him during the Billie Eilish concert, watching the Timberwolves Bulls preseason game on his phone. Sad Cat.
Sad Cat, or who among us, right? Because I've been at some events with my wife or my family, and it's just like me on my phone. Like I'm at like Nostrana getting Italian food. I'm just like watching a Wolves preseason game. So if you're one of those people that still hasn't emotionally gotten over the trade, that doesn't help because it does sound like Carl still has his heart in Minnesota.
Still thinking about
his ex. Yeah.
But so a couple things. Like Cat is decisively, definitively a better shooter. Mm-hmm. Analytically, with just like his efficiency, I think analytics love Cat because he pours in threes. He has one of the best effective field goal percentages of any 7-footer that's shooting from that depth. So that's just going to be a thing that Julius Randle is going to clank more jumpers than Cat, and we're going to have to get used to that. But even just watching the first preseason game, man, like Randle, I think is a better, more decisive passer. I think you're going to see Randle, I don't know if he lived up to this as much last night, but he loves to drive to the hoop a lot more than Cat. I even dug deep into the NBA stat database where you can look up like how often a guy bends over to tie his shoe per 48 minutes on NBA's website. So he averages 5 more drives to the hoop per game than Cat, which, I mean, that's just the style. He loves to go one-on-one, loves to dribble drive. And I found this really interesting, and you saw this a few times last night. Julius Randle passes on almost half of his dribble drives. Cat passes on less than 20% of his. When Cat decides to drive, he's either getting to the hoop, getting fouled, steamrolling into somebody for an offensive foul, or the ball bounces off his thigh. Like there's 4 different things, but passing is not usually one of them for Karl. So you saw some of the dribble drive stuff from Julius Randle last night. I don't. A lot of people hate it because they just don't like his style of play. I kind of love it. I think he's a dog. He can pass. He can rebound. He can get you a bucket. And he's still trying to figure out some of the kinks here because he hasn't played basketball in a long, long time, and he has a bunch of new teammates. So I'm in on Julius Randle.
I buried the lead, actually, as my brain decompresses. The Timberwolves are back. Like, we're back. The season's upon us now, because I did see this morning when I checked Twitter, people upset that they lost to the Bulls in the preseason. And that's when you know you're back, right? Like, people are like, I don't know. It's going to be a long season, man. They couldn't beat the Bulls, and the Bulls look bad. So the Randle thing actually will lead into my stat that I wanted to bring up. But basically, I think the Wolves played 14 guys yesterday. Jalen Clark, I think, did check in, didn't register a full minute. But of everyone that played, 14 guys, over a minute, only 2 people didn't take a three-point attempt. Rudy and Julius Randle. So that was like one thing. Randle did finish. He played 26 minutes, first time since, his injury or whatever, 15 points, 6 rebounds, the 5 assists that you mentioned. I'm kind of with you. I think they're going to give up. Julius Randle is never probably going to take 8 threes in a single game. That's just not his game.
He shouldn't.
The percentages don't really align, like all that stuff. So I'm with you on that. It is weird to have a front court duo that's just not taking threes. And it was concerning to me. And I looked this up today. I was on the stats website too. Phil, last season, the regular season, the Timberwolves ranked 23rd in the league in 3 points attempted, in 3-pointers attempted per game. That was 32.5 per game. They took 32.5 threes per game last regular season. Through 4 preseason games this year, the Wolves ranked 2nd in the league, taking 46.8 threes per game.
Math.
So they are taking, you're basically combining being a bully and being a nerd, which is like a superpower. But they're taking 14 more threes per game in this preseason than they did last regular season, and that's after trading
the best three-point shooter on the team
of all time. And I think, and now I'm kind of trying to tie these two in together, it's not going to matter as much if Randle doesn't take a ton of threes. He's going to have to, at some point, keep the defense honest. But back to your point, DiVincenzo and Ant combined for 29 threes last night. I think, to me, Karl, Rudy, DiVincenzo, or Randle, all this stuff, the number one storyline coming out of this preseason that wraps up tonight at home against the Nuggets is that this offense is going to be one of those offenses now that just is top 10 in the league in threes. And that's what Finch talked about at Media Day, right? He's like, yeah, we were second in the league last year in percentage, but we didn't take enough volume. So who cares if you're shooting 60% if you only take 3 of them? Like, let's shoot 50%, 40%, and shoot 30 of them. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be the biggest offensive switch we see this next season.
Yes. Yeah. This is probably my favorite trend to keep an eye on here, because preseason, sometimes guys are just working on, it's like I used to cover baseball for a few years and would go down and literally live in Fort Myers, Florida, and cover Minnesota Twins spring training games. And I'd watch, for any Twins fans that are overlapping as Flagrant Howls fans, and I would watch, like Nick Blackburn would be out there for the Twins throwing bullpen sessions. But these guys would get out there, these pitchers in spring training, and they might give up like 5 runs in 3 innings, and the assembled media would go down and, boy, what happened out there? Well, you got rocked in a preseason game. What was going wrong? And then they would explain, yeah, definitely not ideal, but I was working on my two-seam fastball today because it's spring training. And last night, maybe some of it was Chris Finch and the front office saying, hey, the math equation, we need to shoot 10 more threes per game. Boston and Minnesota last year had the same three-point make percentage. They both made like 39% of their three-point attempts. Boston took 10 more threes per game. And that's a huge reason why they averaged like 7 more points per game offensively, and why they were one of the top offensive teams in the Wolves. So we can sit here and we can break down any intricate thing, any sort of offensive set, but sometimes math is the reason why teams are ranked 17th in offensive net rating and other teams are ranked 1st or 2nd. But last night I was thinking back to the baseball stuff from my early career, were Ant and DiVincenzo just like taking a night to work on their 3-point stroke, or are they legitimately hunting for 25 to 30 3-point attempts per game going into the regular season?
You know who's number one this preseason on 3-pointers attempted? The Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
So they took, to your point earlier, they took what they were doing last year, won a title, and then said, what if we just shoot even more? Like, what if we just turn the heat up even more? I do get a little concerned with Ant when it's like 3 for 16. Again, preseason game, who cares? But that if you're, shoot or shoot, and that's what he is at his core. But like, yeah, if you're 3 for 10, do you try to find other ways to impact a game? I also, because other teams have done this, and you watch it on League Pass, those teams that are taking 45 threes a game, if it's a cold night, that's how you lose to anyone. That's how you lose to the Bulls, because now it is just a free-flowing game where the Bulls, the Wolves shot.
They lost by 2, and they shot 32% from 3, 17 of 52. If they go 18 of 52, I know it's not that simple.
They win by a dozen.
Flow, but well, no, I'm saying if they make one more 3 and go 18 for 52, they win by 1.
Yep.
And if they're hot, they win by 15 or 20. So you're jumping on a more volatile, high variance style of play, but it is going to be interesting. And real quick, sorry, they traded Cat, who's, like you said, the greatest shooting 7-footer in the history of the game, and the best percentage 3-point shooter on the team. Him and Conley had like a higher percentage, but Cat. And Cat took 5 threes a game. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us would sit there, I think rightfully so, like, dude, can we get it to like 8 or 9, or like, if he could shoot 9 or 10 a game, and even if he dips to like 37 or 38%, but it's easier to say that than it is to put into practice a 7-foot kind of plodding player to even find 9 or 10 great looks per night. Some nights they're there. But a guy like DiVincenzo, who's flying around, he's a little smaller, he's quicker, and he can fly off screens, and he's just going to find different ways in the half court that Cat physically can't to get threes off. I think that's part of the reason why they made the trade too. Like, Cat's a really good 3-point shooter when he has an open look or when he can get the shot off, but he hasn't proven capable of getting 9 or 10 of them off per game. DiVincenzo has.
I honestly think it's this. I was just pulled up my calculator on my phone. I think Chris Finch is one of his main things that he wanted his roster and Tim Connelly, his organization, to change this year. It's not all Cat, by the way, but I think a lot of guys do kind of hear these numbers, and they have so many reports, and they're spoon-fed so much analytics now that they kind of are thinking this. But 40% of 5 is 2, right? 35% of 8 is 2.8. So again, just who cares what your percentages are? We're probably leaning a little too much into efficiency and field goal percentage and all those stats. Volume matters. And I think that, to put a bow on it, is what you're seeing now through 4 preseason games. I don't know what you expect tonight, because I don't know who I expect to play. I'm
going to be there, and I think I'm going to be there for about 10 minutes just to get my credential for the season.
Probably 9 more. Oh, grab mine. I think that's 9 more minutes than Ant's probably going to play.
Yeah.
But
although Josh Minott might be worth sticking around for, we can put a pin in that and circle back. But
so on the Randle thing, I think it was a good. He really came off as just happy to be here, in a sense of when you're coming back from an injury, just getting your feet wet. There is no shape like basketball shape in terms of actually playing and getting the minutes. So I'd be shocked if he played tonight. Probably no Naz Reid, who was out last night. Seems, according to Chris Hine, who was on the beat, super precautionary. Everyone seems like they're going to enter next Tuesday in LA healthy. But I actually did want to maybe talk about 1 or 2 more things from that game last night. Do you want to do the Minot thing?
I saw that dude. I didn't watch the whole game. I ducked in and out, and the Lynx were playing, which we'll talk about that too. But this dude is hitting step back, hand in face, contested threes now. He could barely hit the broads. He could barely hit the side of the backboard on wide open corner threes a year or 2 ago. And he was cooking defenders. And all of that wrapped into like the high energy transition, hands in passing lanes. I don't know. Is it possible that Josh Minott is just taking any minutes that Joe Ingles was maybe penciled in for, plus another few minutes? Or is this for real going into the regular season, do we think?
I can see why you'd be cynical, because it's the preseason. and Josh copped to this too, both at media day and then just kind of talking to him, that Summer League was not a good performance from him. I've learned more and more about Summer League as I just kind of go to it and talk to people, but sometimes too, if you're not playing around a bunch of other NBA guys, it's harder. Like Josh, despite his confidence growing, knows that when he's out there on the court, he's usually the 5th best player on his team. But that's so much different than being in Summer League and maybe being the best player on the team, right? Like it's just different. You don't have the same level of guard play and cohesion and all that stuff. How do you not enter tonight or the regular season and think it's real at this point? Like obviously I'm always glass half full, but tongue in cheek a little bit, but it's like he's had a lobotomy of just his mental way he approaches the game. He's more fearless. He talked at me today about how he just doesn't care if the shot goes in anymore. That was going through my mind last night when he took that step back 3 at the end of the third quarter. It was just like a bleep it, Justin Jefferson's down there somewhere type shot, and then he hit it. But then it's also, there was a play where DiVincenzo drove baseline and Josh repositioned himself, got a drop-off pass, went up for what looked like a dunk, and then had to kind of change in midair.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Minot's 21. Like, there's a real chance, I don't want to speak for the business side of Hubbard and Score, but like, I don't know, man. Like, we might find ourselves in November just doing like the Minot Minute, sponsored by the North Dakota Department of Transportation. Like, we might have to figure this out because he seems like he is a real fixture of the rotation, and he's going to force Chris Finch to play him. But you said, is he going to come and steal Joe Ingles' minutes? He plays such a different position. But do you know whose minutes I think he stole last night? Rob Dillingham played 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, 2 different positions. But I think with the combination of Mike and Ant, and now you bring in DiVincenzo and Nikhil, you're probably going to have more of natural 4 guard, and then like Josh can slide in behind Jaden. He can play the 4. Like if Nas is out, Josh can come in. I just wonder if in a weird way, Josh is going to step over Rob, at least early on in the regular season. Because again, last night, preseason game, you would think, unless there was some injury or something we just didn't know, like Rob Dillingham, the 8th overall pick in this last draft, played 6 minutes last night. And I think that's kind of noteworthy.
Well, okay, on the Dillingham front, and I do think long term, once he sort of
for sure
figures out how to navigate, I am buying stock on Rob Dillingham. But the landscape of this team has changed so much since they drafted him. Because when they drafted him, we were all thinking, whew, they finally found someone maybe that could be like a secondary scorer to Anthony Edwards on nights where Cat just doesn't have it, just somebody else that can ball handle. And obviously, since they made that draft pick, Terrence Shannon Jr. played his ass off in Summer League and showed, he definitely deserves, 10 minutes a night. They make the trade for Donte DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, so they get deeper. They trade 1 rotation player for 2. And then Josh Minott comes out of nowhere and starts hitting 3. So it's like you added offense in DiVincenzo, you added offense in Julius Randle, you added a rotation player in Josh Minott, and Terrence Shannon Jr. looks NBA ready. So it's like those 4 things did not really exist in your equation when you moved up to draft Rob Dillingham. So it kind of felt like, boy, when they drafted Dillingham, you're going to need that dude from day one to play 15, 20 minutes, and fingers crossed that he can score some points. I don't know that you go into LA next week desperate to play him. And that's not like a knock on him, right? I'm not saying he's a bust. You got a really deep team. You got like 10 guys that probably sit in front of him that you would trust to be part of your rotation right now.
Yeah. Again, I echo what you say. Please, we are both bullish and pro Rob Dillingham long term. I don't want to have to issue an apology. I know he has a very passionate fan base. We like Rob on this show, so don't come for us.
Pro Rob.
Pro Rob.
Pro
Rob.
We're just gonna do like the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing. He's just gonna kind of sit for a little bit. He's gonna soak it in.
Pro Rob. Just want to put that out there. I just don't have time. No, I think that too. And again, I just think for that kid, I don't know if he's gonna like go down to Iowa or whatever, but I think just marinating a little bit isn't going to be the worst thing for him. He's in a completely different situation, and expectations for him, despite being a lottery pick, are just going to be lower than every other lottery pick that was drafted around him. But he is very likely going to have much higher expectations sooner than any of those guys, because at some point he is going to be given the keys alongside Anthony Edwards and DiVincenzo in kind of a year from now, God willing, we don't really know, but like Mike Conley might not be here. Nickeil Alexander might not be here, and all of a sudden you're looking at a brand new backcourt of, like I said, Rob and Ant and DiVincenzo. So that was just something I wanted to mention because you're watching that game last night and there's 100 3-pointers attempted and all this stuff, and you're like, where's Rob? He might just, despite what Tim Connelly said, because when they drafted him, to your point, that was a completely different roster than it is now. Yes, you swap out bigs, but the DiVincenzo piece, I mean, again, we're going to have to do the top 100 update before the end of the year. I know we do it in the offseason. DiVincenzo.
I'm going to pull it up right now.
Everything.
We kind of touched on this last week, but okay, right now, here's my top 100. You've seen him in 2 more preseason games. KG, Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, top 3 players in franchise history. Rudy, one of the great defensive players, number 4. Sam Cassell, 5. Kevin Love, 6. Jimmy Butler, 7. Terrell Brandon, 8. Tom Gugliotta, 9. Wally Szczerbiak, 10. If he hits 5 3-pointers against the Lakers on Tuesday, I'm putting him ahead of Wally Szczerbiak.
I was going to say,
10th best player in franchise history.
If DiVincenzo pulls up to the 3rd game in some lamb chop shorts and a Jake Scraps hoodie, he moves across Jimmy Butler for me. We haven't done a pod since the Knicks game. Everything in that game about him made me, that is, you know me, we're friends. Like, that is just me. Like, just talking bleep to people, being fearless. He was shouting out at Tibbs. He's shouting out at Brunson's dad. Like, get the dad off the court, brother. And also Rick Brunson, like, look in the mirror.
On, guy.
Okay, buddy?
Yeah,
let's
stop being creepy.
He's got a weird case. Why is he around? So get him out of there. But he was just going at it. And then to have Knicks fans, I mean, the Knicks fans, New York fans are some of the most ruthless. They're like embracing a guy that's an opponent. I mean, that's just everything about DiVincenzo. And also, too, it's kind of weird because you still do have like an old guard with Ingles and Rudy and Mike, right? That I think they all kind of know we got to sacrifice financially, usage, whatever, because this is our best chance to win a title, even though those Utah teams were really good. The young guys, I throw Nas in there too, right? Like, they're all still figuring it out. Ant, Jaden, all the young pups. DiVincenzo's like the only guy on the roster that you could really make a case is just entering his prime. Yeah. And I don't think we talk about that enough too. Like, I was talking to Jake Painting, who does Howls and Growls. Like, there are nights or there are moments where is Donte DiVincenzo the second best player on the team? And that's what we talked about with the trade, right? It's like, is he the actual asset in all of this stuff? You're getting this Klay Thompson-light guard that is on a very, very cost-controlled contract. So I think we're going to talk about DiVincenzo, DDV, the Diamond Cutter, for the whole season. But I just had to bring his name up because every time I watch him play basketball, Phil, he makes me very happy.
I've interacted with enough Knicks fans, just social media, a couple in my friend group who follow the Knicks, and all of them are ranging from either being devastated that DiVincenzo's gone, or they'll be like, hey, we got the best player in the trade. We love Cat, and I'll spare them my whole Cat rant and just wish them the best with Cat. But then they'll always say, but man, I think you guys are going to like DiVincenzo. All of them. So to gain the respect of that fan base, the Wolves of all the things we talked about the Wolves needing more of, right? Another scorer or just maybe another backup point guard. The thing that we probably didn't talk about enough was they just need another dog or two on that team that wants to rip the opposing team's throat out and finish them. And DiVincenzo is that guy, man.
Krasinski did a good article about DiVincenzo, and internally at practices and all that stuff, talking to people, that he's shown a lot more of that than I think maybe he's shown. I think that Knicks game was a glimpse of what he's like on a daily basis. He is fearless. He also has a pretty incredible resume. You know what I mean? Like, go back to Villanova and those titles. He's won a title in the NBA, so it's not like he's just a guy kind of fighting to belong. Like, he is, in his mind, one of those dudes. So I just think when Ant and him get even more comfortable together, or just bringing some of that New York mentality, that East Coast mentality to this Timberwolves team, it goes back to what we we're talking at the top. Like, I think they're just going to transition more into being a nerdy team that takes a lot of threes and embraces math, but a nerd that also bullies people and like that beats people up, and they're going to be really, really physical, and their defense is going to lock in. I don't super care that they lost to a Bulls team and gave up a bunch of threes. I think once the thing starts in LA, they're going to that's going to be what they kind of hang their hat on. So I just want to get through tonight's game because, again, back-to-back in the preseason is so lame. But it's rightfully so because the Lynx should get to control the schedule this week. But when I'm headed to LA for the opener, I can't wait to watch these guys because I think this is going to be somehow more fun of a season than we had last year. And last year was the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah. Hey, two other things just to overreact to off that preseason game last night that I have. I love it. We could probably do an hour just on that preseason game. And then we'll get to some links and then a random wolf of the week. But I love that there was video from people in the crowd. Mike Conley was essentially just mentoring Rob Dillingham the entire night when they were on the bench together.
Yes.
Where there'd be something happening, either the game would be going on or whatever, and Conley, they weren't like small talking and getting to know each other. It was Conley was like teaching Dillingham what was happening on the court. And Dillingham was just soaking it in going to school. So just, I don't know where their lockers are. I don't know if you've been in the Wolves locker room in the preseason. I might pop in there tonight, but like those guys spending as much time together as possible could be a great thing for Dillingham. And then the other thing on my list. So last season, Jaden McDaniels had 46 games in which he tallied 0 or 1 assists. He had 5 last night. With that ball moving around, there's some nights, even like in the preseason, where he just is a wallflower and disappears. But then there's other nights. Last night was one of them where he's scoring from every level. He's dishing. He's rebounding. In fact, we should go back. How many? It's a preseason game. I get it. But in 23 minutes, he dished out 5 assists and had 4 rebounds. How many games in his career has he had 4 rebounds or more on the same night that he had 4 or 5 assists or more? I'll bet you it's less than a handful. So just a preseason game against the Bulls. But if we're going to get like distributing playmaking Jaden Daniels, sign me up. Sign me up.
Is this, to the listeners, comment on YouTube, is this what it feels like when your kid comes home with an A on like the first spelling test? Because I mean, when he ran that high pick and roll with Rudy kind of coming off the baseline, and he took one hard dribble back kind of into the paint, and then Rudy just rolled, and Jaden just threw the perfect lob to Rudy. I mean, again, spoiler, I kind of cried a little bit because I was just like, oh my God, like that is just an element of all of this that maybe was there in year 1 through 4, but never really was tapped into. I've been his staunchest defender and biggest fan, but I also think too that, when you get a 500% pay increase or whatever, like you do need to start to untap some more of that stuff. So I think the defense overall, what you just said, everything up and down this preseason, I think the defense, once the lights are the brightest, is going to be really, really good. And they'll have to figure out, Randle and Rudy will have to figure out communication and signals and trying to make sure that they switch properly and all that stuff. But the offensive side of the ball, which I think we both agree is what doomed them in the Mavericks series, the offensive side of the ball is going to be much, much, much better this year. And if they can get, like you said, from 17th and kind of just offense to 9th or 10th, back to our efficiency versus volume thing, it's probably okay if the defense slips to 4th or 5th. Because if it's just, again, if you're top 10 in defense and top 10 in offense, you're almost guaranteed to be a good team, barring any injury. And I think that's probably Finch and Micah and everyone's philosophy of let's dial down the defense just a little bit. That's still our identity. But offensively, man, if we got guys like Jaden McDaniels averaging 5 assists a game and DiVincenzo can throw lobs, and Rob's coming in here and had up until this week the highest assist to turnover ratio in the preseason in the league, like it's going to be really, really fun.
Boy, if you came to this podcast hoping for 30 minutes, 2 dudes gushing about a team that lost a preseason game to the Bulls, then you are in business. Maybe you're looking to stay downtown. Maybe you're coming in from out of town, or you just want to spend a fun night downtown with Wolves season starting. Element Hotel, downtown Minneapolis, just steps away from Target Center and Target Field. It's a Marriott Bonvoy hotel, too, for points purposes. Right on the light rail, super walkable to some of downtown Minneapolis' finest and most popular bars and restaurants. And there's garage parking, too, super affordable. Just a great spot. City views, bright natural lighting, and the rooms are perfect if you're flying solo, or maybe you're bringing the whole crew along. Family, friends, and furry friends are also allowed at Element Hotel, just down the street from Target Center and Target Field. Go to scorenorth.com/element to find out more. scorenorth.com/element. Also a shout out to Nicolay Law, the exclusive personal injury law firm of Score North podcast. Nicolay Law knows that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life can come to a stop. Things can get complicated, and that's where Nicolay Law comes in. Russell Nicolay, fear the flannel. Deep breath. He's got you covered with his great team. Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay, nicolaylaw.com, or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. Random Wolf of the Week coming up here, but boy, that was a stomach-turning loss by the Lynx last night. Up by 15 points. This series has been crazy, by the way. Big leads on both sides evaporating. And, man, a logo three. I guess if you were going to say, hey, logo three-pointer, take it or leave it defensively, I think you'd say, good luck. And, yeah, so now the Lynx have their backs against the wall. Home game on Friday night, game 4. It's a must-win to send it back to New York. But crazy series. The Lynx, there was a game against the Sparks like 8 years ago in the finals, I remember, where they got daggered. But, they don't usually give you the classic Minnesota sports dagger to the heart. They did last night.
I think that was, I will say, this is probably the most violently I've ever pushed back against you. Giving up the logo 3 in Target Center is not actually a thing we should do anymore. Because Luka, now Sabrina, incredible shot making. I don't really know what else you could have done as a defender there. But it was, when that 3 went in and I was texting you, that's what I thought too, is the Lynx. We always talk about how Minnesota doesn't have any titles, and we just constantly overlook maybe the biggest WNBA dynasty of all time in the Lynx, and they've won all these titles. But they were always kind of the barometer and the gold standard, and we're just better than that. And they did. I don't know who got them, but they just got pulled into the Minnesota sports mess last night of just absolute heartbreak. Down the stretch, they just kind of played with their food a little too much.
They were 14 of 40 in the paint.
Yeah, and good looks for the most part, but they just missed it. And then just, again, this team has basically proven every single person wrong, and they just have the mentality and identity of their coach, who is just always kind of saying us against the world. But when you, and not to say they played with their food, but when you let a team back in it, and I think, as Fee is so underrated, but Sabrina is equally as potential star power. There's not much you can do when the other team has one of those types of shot makers, and she hit. I mean, I think Ryan Rucco was on the call. I mean, he was melting. He was just terms of his call was screaming into the TV. Yeah. So, which is great because it was a moment.
Ryan Rucco, and I've been around him a few times in person, one of the nicest dudes in national broadcasting. But you have a native, hard on your sleeve New York guy calling the series, and then Rebecca Lobo, who played for the Liberty, was one of the great players in Liberty history. And you can kind of hear it when the Liberty are making a run or when they hit a big shot. There's a little extra sauce on the call. And I hate being that guy. But we kind of talked about this, I think, last week. It'd be like putting Lindsay Whalen and Marnie Gellner or something on the call. I mean, yeah, there'd be a little extra sauce on it. Also, dude, Breanna Stewart is a ridiculous basketball player.
Yeah.
To knock down all those free throws, to pretty much score from every level. There's just crazy talent in this league right now. And yeah, I mean, the Lynx are, it's funny because everyone talks about, obviously, Caitlin Clark, and Indiana's going to be there for a long time, and the teams that Vegas and New York have put together. But the Lynx aren't going away. They kind of put this roster together, and Nafisa Collier is in the middle of her prime right now. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, I do think they force a game 5, and then we'll see what happens in New York. But it's going to be a fun 3 to 5 year stretch with all the talent that's coming into this league. These have been fun games.
I'm with you too. Our friend, our colleague Darren Wolfson did a back and forth today with Kayla McBride that he tweeted out. I would go listen to that, and kind of that same energy of hey, it's the first of 3, right? I know we said we didn't want to go back to New York. We want to take care of this at our home, but that's sports happen. So I would also expect them to come out. But Doogie did have that Alana Smith told him that she's for sure playing tomorrow night. And I think that to me is kind of my coin flip. If she plays, I think they win because they are tough. If she doesn't play, I do think it lowers their chances a lot just because she's such kind of a vital part of what they're trying to do.
She was a plus 20 in 20 minutes last night.
I know. And just that, yeah, it's just, again, they had it, and that's probably going to mentally kill them. You got to kind of stew on it for a day or so, but they had that game kind of wrapped up, but you just don't want to give the Sabrinas of the world. This is what the Wolves did too, right? You don't want to give those Lukas of the world that opportunity in that moment to make that shot. They eerily similar spots going left to right on your screen. But yeah, I think, again, that's why the Timberwolves and Nuggets got moved up to tonight at Target Center, is because tomorrow night on a Friday, if you still believe in this Lynx team, and I think you and I very much still do, that might be the hottest ticket in town. So go check out the Lynx, who, by the way, I think set in Game 3 a attendance record with 19,000, which is really tough because I know we tell the young people listening into this, trying to get into this, not to read the comments, but I did see someone that's like, oh, no one, who are the Lynx? Who are the Liberty? Well, Game 1 had 1.1 million viewers, which was the most watched Game 1 of WNBA Finals ever. And then last night, the Lynx had their highest attendance record ever. So I don't know who the Lynx are, but they're clearly pretty popular.
The league is on fire. WNBA is... by the way, it always takes, even the men's leagues, it takes like 25 or 30 years from when you start the league. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to go through like a generation or two, and then kids have to grow up and start as a 3 or a 5-year-old going to games, and it's hard to be like 30 years old and then a team emerges in your city. You're not like emotionally attached to it. Same thing happened. The NBA was the mid 1940s or late 1940s, and it took until like 1979, 1980 with Magic and Bird and them not tape delaying the NBA Finals like they did for 30 years. So this is definitely an inflection point for the league, and it's cool that the Lynx are right in the thick of it as the league explodes in popularity. So
I know we got to bring Ross in. I know we got a little bit of a time crunch, but I just want to also add this because the last time we talked was maybe before the game down in Iowa. You already talked about this on Flagrant Howls another time. Michael Grady announced he's going to be doing ESPN games. He is the Anthony Edwards of the broadcast game. He deserves it all. He's still going to call Timberwolves games. Probably not as many. I think they'll probably fill in with Marnie, who has elite chemistry, I think, with Jim. But I'm just throwing this out there. If they need another person, give Alan Horton a shot. Yeah. I think he and Jim would be fantastic. They've called games on the radio together. I think he was kind of calling that Des Moines, Iowa game through the stream. So it was like his radio broadcast paired with the video. And I thought Alan Horton, who has the toughest job in all this, he's by himself. He has all these boards. But give Alan Horton a shot if you need some games called this year, because if you haven't listened to a radio call, maybe do that tonight. Maybe tune into K-Fan or something. And Alan Horton is as good at what he does as Grady and Jim at what they do. So give him a chance. Yeah.
And it's cool. I think Grady's going to do 18 ESPN NBA games, and there might be some crossover where he actually does a Wolves game or two. But he totally deserves it. And much like Kevin Harlan was doing some national stuff in football and calling Wolves, but most of these guys keep local jobs and then do the national stuff. I mean, Mike Breen is the voice of the NBA Finals, and he calls Knicks games for MSG.
Yep.
Mark Jones, who's like the secondary or third NBA play-by-play guy on ESPN, he calls Sacramento Kings games. So I know we kind of joke about it, like we're going to lose Grady at some point, but like usually unless you're packed to the gills with national, if you're Kevin Harlan, you're doing NBA, NFL, and it's all national work. Generally, you get to keep your local job and just kind of double dip. So we might get the best of both worlds, where Michael Grady stays on Timberwolves for a few years and also is a conduit for the national game. So let's bring our guy Ross Brendel in here, producer extraordinaire and the keeper of the Random Wolf of the Week.
You know who else is good at their job? This guy.
Who's got buddy? 2 thumbs and a Random Wolf of the Week? That guy
this
right
guy.
there. Yeah.
Fresh
How you boys doing?
Face too. You look like a baby.
Yeah. I finally got rid of all the acne and shaved the face, and now there's another one coming back. So
another beard coming back or a pimple?
Both at this point. Both at this point.
So here's
Any
how the
good
random
dermatologists out there, by the way.
Well, there
My
might be
DMs
some.
are open.
Here's how Random Wolf works. Kyle with 21 career victories. I have 12. Ross will throw out a series of clues that lead us to a Random Wolf of the Week. We get up to 3 incorrect guesses each, plus a heat check guess after the first clue. If one of us hits the third strike, the other one wins automatically. I'm on a 2-game winning streak here for the first time in like probably 5 months. The last handful of Random Wolves: Reggie Slater, Will Avery, Doug West, Latrell Sprewell, and Jordan McLaughlin. You guys ready to rock and roll here?
That's a good starting 5 right there.
Yeah. I don't hate it.
Is it?
He can win 15 games with that.
Who's your center there? I guess Reggie Slater.
Probably Reggie Slater, right? My guess.
I guess Latrell Sprewell playing the stretch 4. And then your backcourt of Will Avery and Jordan McLaughlin, barely 6 feet tall. And then Doug West as your small forward.
That's your swingman.
Get with that. Okay.
Here we go, boys. Clue number 1 for you. This random Wolf of the Week was born during one of the George Bush administrations.
Stick to sports.
I'm writing in my notes.
Out which one.
I'm writing in my notes. Born in 1990 or like 2004.
Heat check time, boys.
Oh,
boy.
Real shot in the dark here.
He was pretty young either way, right? I mean,
Wesley Johnson.
that's a good one.
No, Kyle, but that's Wesley Johnson is formerly Phil's Will Avery for you, isn't it?
Yep, 100%. It's a smile.
I'm going to go Rashad McCants.
Oh, it is not Rashad McCants. So we are on to clue number 2. Okay. It has been reported that this random Wolf of the Week received strong interest to play basketball at the University of Kentucky. I will add, he did not end up at Kentucky, but he was, of course, highly recruited. This random Wolf of the Week played high school basketball at the same high school as former NBA player Donnie Marshall. Not Danielle, Donnie Marshall.
Okay.
Even I had to double check and make sure they weren't the same person.
I don't know if that clue does much for me.
This random Wolf of the Week played college basketball in the technically still alive but basically defunct Pac-12.
Must have been a pretty good Pac-12 school.
But they're bringing teams back.
Yeah, well, I think Washington State and Oregon State couldn't find a taker, so they stayed, and now we're getting like Fresno State and some other random.
They added Gonzaga. That's like a passion project talking about that for me. Yeah, Gonzaga's in on a basketball
so they're making the
basketball
jump finally.
only.
Basketball only. Yeah.
Gonzaga's lost about 2 conference games since 1999. St. Mary's is the one that probably beat them in both those conference games.
Have you guys seen, I think it's Barstool, might be John Boy, they're doing the weekly Pac-12 power rankings where they're just basically rotating between Oregon State and Washington State.
Is it a close battle? Are they neck and neck?
Truth be told, I don't know if it's ever changed. I think they're just putting the 2 teams up. So, anywho, go search that if you'd like. This random Wolf of the Week has been named to the NBA All-Defensive Second Team once in his career. So named to the NBA All-Defensive Second Team once in his career.
I mean, that's like
wait, hold on. Jaden McDaniels.
Wow. He's back in the win column.
Wow, dude. Wow. I mean,
well done.
Washington, the second George Bush administration.
I didn't get that clue at all. I just wrote down George Bush on my note card, so that didn't help. But I was
thinking early '90s still. I didn't think Ross was gonna go current player.
Well, if Phil would have gotten my guy, that would have been disgusting, and I would have felt so bad about it. But yeah, I think Ross is wearing purple for the YouTube audience, so that got me thinking Huskies and Pac-12. But did he? I mean, also too, how many other Wolves have made all defense?
Let's look at that.
That's the only reason I thought it. Ross, you almost just gave me the most recent clue, but he must have gone. So Donnie Marshall went to. Is it Ross? Is it Federal Way?
Federal Way High School, which is an incredibly cool name.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Dude, there is Seattle is a hotbed for Timberwolves. Jalen Noel is a Seattle guy. Jaden McDaniels,
Zach LaVine, Jamal Crawford. They have a group chat too. Seattle basketball. Once they get the Sonics back, that's going to be awesome. But yeah, Phil, do you have that quick? I mean, I don't even know who else would have been. Okay, so this is outdated on NBA.com because it doesn't include the last year. Okay, but there's 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's been 9 other years where a Wolves player has been all defense, but only 2 players besides Jaden McDaniels. Can you guess the 2?
Kevin Garnett?
Kevin Garnett 8 times. No Corey Brewer.
That was a bad guess.
The only other one did it once. Post KG era.
I was actually going to guess Al Jefferson because he used to get a lot of rebounds, but he wasn't a great defensive player.
No, he was a sieve.
Ross, he might have finished last in the all
He was one of the worst defensive players in the history of the NBA, actually.
But he got rebounds.
Yeah, I would say Robert Covington, but he wouldn't have played enough games. Oh, Jimmy Butler?
There you go. I was going to say, you're sniffing
Okay.
around it. They were traded for each other.
Did I make that too easy on you, Kyle?
No.
I tried to make it difficult. I didn't think you would get it that quick.
I think what's tough, I'll just speak for myself because I lost here, but I don't ever think current active players, but that is part of the game. It's not random former player who was a Wolf. It's just random Wolf of the week. So like
Now,
Luka Garza could be next week. You wouldn't know. Just come out of nowhere.
If you add Jaden McDaniels to that starting five of Reggie Slater, Will Avery, Jordan McLaughlin, Doug West, and Latrell Sprewell, you cut somebody out there, now we might be up to 20 wins.
But who would you cut though? I mean, pretty tough.
And if you could somehow acquire the rights to Al Jefferson, you might have the best defensive team in the league, Ross.
I never said he was good. He's just a name that came to mind.
Good stuff.
Jeepers.
All right, dudes. Congratulations to Kyle on his hard-fought victory here. Random Wolf of the Week. Appreciate you guys clicking the subscribe button and the like button on the Score North YouTube channel. And over on the Flagrant Howls audio feed, so Apple and Spotify, it helps when you give us a 5-star rating and a positive review. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.